Welcome back to Don't Wing It. Today's episode is going to be very special for you because I have a new friend coming on the show, Mrs. Ann Watson. And Ann and I met through a mutual friend, Kim Stewart. You heard her back on the episode a few weeks ago. So let me tell you a little bit about Ann before we start our conversation. Ann is a business strategy coach, and she is the host of the Swayology podcast. Don't you love that name? Her passion is helping coaches and those who communicate think like a business so that they can inspire like a boss. Her clients get extreme clarity about their niche and develop that into a transformational offer that increases both their self worth and net worth. And currently lives in the Dallas, Texas area with her husband, 3 adult children, and way too many dogs. That's what she said. So I'm excited to welcome Ann Watson to the podcast. Let's go. Ann, welcome to Don't Wing It.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's jump in first because you are in front. If y'all are watching on YouTube, Ann is in front of, or if you're not, and I'm going to explain it to you, Ann is in front of her bookcase in her podcast studio, and she has a sign and it says, "Ready is a lie." And so the first thing that I saw, I was like, whoa, we're going to stop right there and we're going to kind of put the brakes on. And I got to hear all about this. So tell us, Ann, what does that mean and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so I didn't come up with it. I heard it from another influencer who it's kind of a mantra that she says. And every time she said it, it just felt like I feel like gut punch is the wrong phrase, but just a little gut twist. Like, and this is important to you that this idea of being ready is never going to happen. That on some level, whether you're at the very beginning of your business or you've been doing this for a long time and you're about to launch something new, whatever it is, no one's ever truly, fully, completely, perfectly ready. And so waiting for that moment is really just holding yourself back and denying the world the gifts and the service that you have for them. And
Mhm.
so I put it up there as a reminder to myself, I'm never going to be totally ready. But also, that's never going to stop me. So it's something that matters to me. It's something that I think resonates actually with a lot of people that ready is a lie. Don't wait until you feel ready because you will never feel ready.
Mm, that is so powerful. And I love that you said,
Yeah, we are our own worst enemies, right? And
mm,
especially women, especially because we have been taught that it's better to serve and not receive. And we feel somehow guilty about putting out there the things that we do well in the
mm,
service of others because we feel like it needs to be perfect or it's somehow selfish. We've just got all these roadblocks that are in our own minds
mm,
when really there's just somebody out there that's like, I wish I knew how to do this. And
mm.
someone like you or me, we know how and we can show them. And that's as easy as it is. And like I said, waiting until you're ready, it's a fallacy. It's just going to hold you back and it's going to hold back the people you're intended to serve.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, tell me what were the symptoms that you had seen maybe in the past that now as an adult confirm that you were diagnosed with ADHD?
So essentially, I used to joke all the time that I had ADHD, right? I would forget
Yeah.
something or forget mid thought what I was talking about or forget the point that I was trying to make.
Hmm.
You know, when you're telling a story to somebody and you're like, wait, why was I telling you that? Like that
Mm,
would happen kind of a lot to me.
hmm.
Or I would sit down to create a piece of content and find myself 30 minutes later scrolling through Instagram on my phone and not really, wait, how did I get here? Not really
Hmm.
sure what happened there.
Yeah.
And just finding that it was easier for me to focus when I was physically doing things than when I was sitting and trying to be quiet with my thoughts. So I used to joke all the time that I had ADHD. And the story is that I was going through a personal family drama that was really intense and ended up seeking counseling for it. Get in the counselor's chair and she
Mm,
says, "Tell me what's going on." I start telling her. I don't even know how long I talked, but when I came up for air, she said to me, "Have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD?" And that is so not what I expected her to say, right? I was expecting her to go, "Oh, you poor baby, that's awful. These people are all evil. Like, you're in the right." But what she said was, "Have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD?"
Mm.
And I just laughed. I'm like, "Well, I mean, I say that I have adult ADHD all the time." She said, "I think we need to get that checked." So she sent me to a psychiatrist, sits down in the chair. She says, "Tell me what's going on." I give her my story. I don't know how long I talk, but when I come up for air, she says, "Yes, you do have it." And I was expecting an assessment, a paper I had to fill out, like,
Right.
I don't know, some sort of computer model
Yeah.
scan with, check
Scantron.
here if you think you might be pregnant release. I don't know. Like, she's like, "Yeah, no, you have it for sure."
Yeah.
So I was really surprised by that. I wasn't expecting that.
Mm.
But hearing that it was true that I had it
Mm.
felt a little bit like relief to me.
Mm.
So, to put that in a little bit of context for you, I also have celiac disease, which is an autoimmune disorder. It means I can't eat gluten.
Right.
And I was 21 years symptomatic, but undiagnosed.
Mm.
So I went to doctor after doctor with all of these symptoms, the
Mm.
chronic fatigue, the GI symptoms, the brain fog, all these things. And no doctor could pinpoint it. And it
Mm.
actually got to a point where I almost wished, and this sounds so bad. So I hope people will just kind of be with me in this struggle to figure out why I didn't feel well. But I almost wish they would find cancer because I felt like I
Mm.
could fight cancer. I
Mm.
could fight what I knew. But fighting the unknown was an impossible task. And in fact, so celiac disease means I can't eat gluten, which is present in wheat, rye, and barley. I decided to take my health into my own hands and started buying whole grain everything. I was
Mm.
buying as much wheat based products as I could because that was what I thought was healthy.
Right.
And I was slowly killing myself and didn't know it.
Mm.
So when I got the diagnosis of celiac disease, it was fine. It was so much relief because I
Mm.
knew how to fight it now.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like when I got the ADHD diagnosis. And in fact, when I looked back, I used to think that I was not a very smart person because I never did very well in school.
Mm.
I had test taking anxiety. I struggled to get the good grades, and it was mostly because I was bored and disinterested by this stuff. It took me forever to realize I'm actually a very smart person. I
Mm.
couldn't figure out why I didn't do well in school.
Mm.
So, finding out I had the ADHD started to plug in some things for me. Things started clicking, things started making sense.
Mm.
So, it's probably something that I have dealt with my whole life.
Yeah.
But, not to age myself, but I'm going to age myself. Back in the 70s and 80s,
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
didn't diagnose it.
Right.
It just wasn't that popular of a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, again, finding out that I had this was such a relief. It was
Mm.
huge.
Well, and I'm thinking of what you said about, fighting the unknown, like you were
Right.
fighting it and you didn't know what it was. And so that's, um, of course, it was a relief to find that out. And I think and I was gonna tell you this. I found out that with reading comprehension, that a lot of some people have struggles with that. Like looking back as an adult now and looking back as a kid, that people had problems with that, or if they did, I did, and that it was actually the inattentive ADHD, not necessarily the reading comprehension. It was,
Right.
that kind of distractible or just the inattention, because if we're not interested in it, then we're not going to focus on it. And so I think that's really interesting. And what I am saying also with ADHD is that we need to know that it does affect a lot of women that are adults. Like it does affect a lot of us. And so I don't have a diagnosis, but I'm pretty sure when we were talking and you were
Yeah.
like listing these things, I was like, yes, 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 yes. we're going to talk about strategies that you've used to do this.
Yeah.
So I just want to say before that is that if y'all are out there, if you are out there and you are like, I used to joke, or I still joke that I have ADHD, or I forget the end of the story, I forget the point. You know, scroll Instagram and say, well, how did I get here?
Right.
um, we're here to give you encouragement that there are strategies that you can use, regardless if you think you're ADHD, if you have a diagnosis or not.
Yes.
Anne is here to tell you there is hope and you can run a successful business and serve people well, even within the struggle. So
Absolutely.
tell me, so let's kind of go back. So you found out you were diagnosed, you were like,
Yes.
okay. And so you had relief, like you felt total relief. And
Yes.
I, I love that that was a feeling that you had, you know, going through life as an adult and a kid and growing up and teenage years and all that and college and then, married life and family that you were relieved. I know sometimes when kids are diagnosed, it's not a relief. It's like, well, maybe, but if you've had this for a long time going on and then you're like, oh, finally, like celiac, like finally I know. So how are you more gifted? Because I know a lot of psychiatrists say that with ADHD, that can be a superpower.
Yeah, for
How
sure.
how do you look at it from your perspective in your business as it being a superpower for you?
Well, I want to talk about that, but first I want to say that if you think that you have ADHD, I think it's important to explore that, whether you go to a physician or not.
Mm,
Because the reason I told you that celiac disease story was because I was pumping myself full of wheat thinking I was doing the healthy thing,
mm,
but I was actually poisoning myself. And so if you think you have ADHD, you might be trying to approach it in a way that doesn't make sense for it, and you could potentially be hurting yourself.
mm.
So, I just want to give people permission. I mean, ADHD is incredibly prevalent right now. I think technology has made it worse for
Yeah.
everyone, and
Mhm.
there are options for treating it. But
Mm,
I do think that it's a superpower. And one of the biggest reasons for that is because people with ADHD, their brains are constantly going, and we are constantly looking around us and we see a lot of different things happening at one time,
mm,
which can sometimes be hard to process. But the reason that I think that that's a superpower is because a lot of times it means we can see a bigger, more expanded picture and see how pieces fit together
mm.
in a way that other people cannot. So
Yeah.
we don't have tunnel vision. We've got wide lens panoramic view. And
Mm.
this is one of the things that I love with my clients, because what
Yep.
happens a lot is they'll come to me and they'll say, I just have all of the ideas. I feel all over the place.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. Tell me about these ideas. Tell me about why you feel all over the place. And they begin to list off what in their minds is a million different things.
mhm.
But to me, I listen to those things and I go, all of those things that you just mentioned lead back to this one main point.
Yep.
They all tie back into this one thing, which I think is what you're really trying to say. And
Mm,
all those things that make you feel all over the place are actually branches of your
mm.
main passion, which looks like this.
Yes.
And the relief that people feel when I say that, I mean, it's like seeing the light bulb go on over the top of their head,
Mm,
right? Where they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
yep.
But it's because I can take a lot of different things at once
Mm.
and put them all together. It's
So
amazing. I
good.
mean, I can listen to a podcast or watch a movie that's, some fiction movie like Marvel, right? And
Mhm.
I can pull a God story out of it
Yeah.
because my brain is going,
Yep.
right? And I'm like, okay, in the end of, Avengers Endgame, when Tony sacrificed himself for the greater good, like
Mm,
you can really see how his passion for his people, even though he really felt very selfish, was actually quite Christ-like in,
mm.
the way that he did that move and the way that he died because of it and the way that people mourned for him. Like like my brain is going so fast all the time, but I can pull out stories and nuggets and information out of just about anything. And
Mm,
I can turn a story into a lesson. And
yeah.
it's such a fun thing. And it's something that does make me really unique and allows me to encourage my clients in a really unique way.
Mm. And that is powerful because now what was such a relief for you to find out,
Yeah.
now it's your superpower and you're bringing relief to those clients. Like, talk
Yeah.
about a ripple effect,
Hmm.
right?
For
I mean,
sure.
that is powerful. And I'm feeling relief just hearing you say that because I've done that for my clients in a different way with podcasting. But I think that is so important to turn it on its head and let's say, okay, not as a disability, but as a superpower. And
Oh,
I think
yes.
that is so tremendous for us to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Mm. Okay, so let's go a little further. So when you found out, you're like, okay, I have ADHD. I know I'm diagnosed. I know you did try medicine for a time and
I
then,
did.
some of the side effects you had to not, continue, but you have some strategies that you do and I love them. A couple of them I use and then a couple of them I'm going to use. So I wouldn't want to hear you share what are some ways that we can manage it or even if we have an inkling like you said, like go get tested, like have that as knowledge for you to know because we know that there are I think there's 7 types of ADHD. I didn't
Okay,
know that
that's
until
new
this year.
information for me.
Yeah. I started reading a book and there's 7 types and you deal with those in different ways. And so I
Okay.
think that's so eye-opening for me too, because when we look at how to deal with it, like you said, we need to look in how to deal with it in different ways. I think it's from that book by Daniel Amen. Um, called of course I'm gonna forget it, girl. Healing ADHD or ADD. I don't know. Anyway, I'll put it in the show notes. But
Okay. Yeah.
tell us some of these strategies that you do that work. They're so fun. They're so fun. I want to hear them. Share with us.
Okay. So, well, first of all, I want to say that ADHD means you are unique, which means your solutions are going to be unique.
Mm,
So I did start off taking the medication when I first got diagnosed. And hey, if you need to be on medication and it is working for you, then I am a proponent. Do it. That's amazing. I thought that my pants fit better. That was awesome. But but I also had heart palpitations and I started to get high blood pressure.
yeah.
And they were medically things that for me I felt were a little scary and I just didn't want to deal with.
Yeah.
So I opted to go off of the medication, which was really, really sad because I
Mhm.
was never more productive than when I was medicated, right?
Right.
Um, but the medical side effects were just too much for me and I just
Sure.
don't want to deal with it. So
Yeah.
I have had to figure out how to manage my ADHD without medication. And let me tell you, it's
Mm,
hard. And
mm.
there are I'm going to be totally transparent and tell you there are days it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
I get to 10, 11 a.m. in my day and I'm like, okay, so this is that kind of day. And
Mm,
I give myself permission to give up on that day because pushing myself when I'm struggling feels like failure.
mm.
And tend to beat myself up about it. And so I have to not do that. So there's a blessing and a curse here in trying to figure out what works for you. And that's the key is what works for you.
Yeah.
Now, the curse of it, maybe it's the blessing, I'm actually not sure which, is I'm interested in all the things. So when I'm setting up my business and I'm looking for an email service provider, you better believe that I took days and researched all of them.
Mhm.
Right? And I signed up for the free trials for all of them, and then my inboxes exploded with marketing emails, and all of a sudden it got very overwhelming.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so I had to make a decision to pick one and then unsubscribe from all the rest.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it ADHD can be a superpower because you're investigative, because you are interested in the different features, because you want to know the best thing for you. But if you don't manage the overwhelm that comes with that,
Mhm.
then overwhelm is going to seep into your soul and make you feel like you're not doing things well enough, you're not doing things right.
Mm.
So, one of my tips is give yourself that permission to look at the things you want to do, research the things you want to do, but then also give yourself permission to unsubscribe, to cut out, to say no to the things that don't work.
It's so good what you're doing, and I want if you're listening out there and you're like, "Oh, can't," like, total Anne has described exactly what I'm going through, like,
Mhm.
exactly what I need. I want y'all to be able to reach out to Anne. So, Anne, tell us where we can find you online and then your podcast,
Yep.
and any last thoughts that you wanna give us because we're out of time. What happened? We could
I
go on for
know.
hours, couldn't
I
we,
could
girl?
hours, hours. I would happily do that.
Yeah. So
Well,
tell
let's
us.
see. People can find me at my website, which is Anne with an E, mwatson.com. But one of the easiest ways to find me truly is Instagram
Yeah.
because with Instagram, you're looking at one thing at a time.
Yes.
And so it's easier for me to manage with ADHD. And I love getting into my DMs and having conversations with people. And so, yeah, definitely hit me up on Instagram. That's at Ann Watson TX for Texas,
Yeah.
because that's where I live in the heat. And then the Swayology podcast, you can listen to that on iTunes or on Spotify. And
Mm,
I would love for people to listen to it and even leave a review if they found it helpful, because that helps other people find it. But it is such a joy and a pleasure. It is a combination of interviews and solo episodes, just designed to give you guys information and other people's stories that are going to help you and serve you and inspire you to do the thing that you do best.
mm. And that's true. And when you go to a podcast and see those reviews, it is totally the legitness of the podcast. So
Absolutely.
reviews really do help for that social proof so that if you have 2 reviews, that's like wah, wah, wah. But if you have more
Right.
reviews, it really shows others that it is helpful and it is a great place to be. And I've heard your podcast and it's great. And so I'm excited for you to continue that. And thank you so much for helping us, just those of us that might learn differently or even just get distracted really a lot in our business, for just getting us these strategies that have helped you and for just giving us permission to do things differently and what works for us. So I really appreciate your time, and this is really helpful. And I know it's going to be helpful for my listeners out there. And y'all, I want to ask Anne any more last thoughts that you want to say about this, about encouragement for the women out there that's struggling with this.
I mean, yeah, I think honestly, all of us have some level of ADHD in us.
Yeah.
So whether you choose to go get diagnosed or not, play with figuring out the processes, the boundaries, the systems, the strategies that work for you.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it like everyone else does.
Mm,
You just don't. I say take the courses, take the workshops, all of that, take what you can from them, but
mm,
be willing to adjust it to a way that works for you. Because if it isn't working for you, it isn't working. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to simplify. Don't be afraid to say no to stuff, and you'll figure it out. And if you want to talk more about ADHD, if you're unsure, DM me. I'll tell you more of my strategies. We only covered a few of them here today. So,
right. It's
yeah,
so helpful. And thank
happy
you
to
so
talk
much.
about it.
I mean, just the freedom of it and just bringing it out in the open and saying, "This is what, I struggle with. Let's just get to the real point of it." And so I appreciate that about you, Anne, and I appreciate the freedom that you are gonna bring to us, and I just appreciate you so much. So thanks for coming on Don't Wing It. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I hope that it was helpful and that we can continue the conversation. And I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing and just how fantastic you are. So thank you so much for having me here.
Love that we have this connection with each other. Awesome. Hey guys, I will see you next week. Remember, I'm here to help because life is too short to just wing it. See you next time.